Morning. It's lovely to see so many people here, and the purpose of this morning really is to reassure the parent community. It was actually Kunkatia, one of the friends of Harrow, who came to speak to me about some of the discussions that were happening across the parent body in regards to entry into sixth form. And I think the best way forward fundamentally is to act with transparency and hopefully to be able to reassure you of the reasons why we do what we do here at Harrow Bangkok. The first thing though is a top tip. With so many of you here, you will be some of our most engaged parents across the upper school. So firstly, a thank you for that from me. But the impact that you have at home is tremendous. And in some cases, it's actually larger than what goes on in the classroom. So if you look at the data behind me, you'll see some information from John Hattie. Now, John Hattie is based in Melbourne. He conducted a study in 2008, which was then refined in 2011. But the impact that the stability of the home environment has and the encouragement that parents give can have up to 2 years of progress in terms of input into your child's education. Now, how wonderful is that? To feel that you are in control of supporting your child's progress as they go through their educational journey. And they are not challenging things. They are genuinely just being positive, framing mindset and being encouraging to your son or daughter. They are making sure that they are well fed and that they are well rested. And one plea from me this morning is to make sure that they're off the devices as much as possible as well, because that will certainly look after their well-being. And also that your involvement. Now, your involvement does not require you to speak English. It does not require you to know mathematical equations. Your involvement is a conversation around a dinner table. Okay? So before we get started on today's entry requirements, for those people who have students in the prep phase, for instance, you play an enormous role in getting our students to where they need to be ready for that sixth form entry point. So the outcomes of the session, hopefully we're here to reassure you of the processes and procedures in place at Harrow Bangkok. I hope that you will all leave here being very clear on the entry requirements and why we have 6 Bs as a minimum entry requirement for our sixth form. I hope it will enable you to have conversations with your children at home around about the pathways that are available to them, both within school and more broadly. And hopefully it starts a conversation whereby on a one-to-one basis you can speak to myself, Mr. Brown, Miss Paul, and talk about the route that your child will take through the Harrow Bangkok journey. Now, this probably isn't the best forum to discuss particular students and particular situations, but what I do encourage you to do is we will all know our calendar. If you want to discuss your child specifically at the end of this meeting, maybe we can book in an appointment and make sure that you get the information that you need. So, why do we have entry requirements at all? The first one is fundamentally we want to ensure that students feel successful. So you can see in that bottom left-hand corner, fundamentally that is our main aim. Okay? You will see we have lots of different models to accommodate students. But the model that we cannot have is a model whereby students come into that sixth form and feel demotivated and have low self-esteem because they are not feeling success on a daily basis. The pathways that you will be exposed to today are designed to ensure that your children feel safe and secure in their learning and that they can access it and actually do it really, really well. The other one is making sure that we are enabling a route into higher education. Children's educational journey, hopefully, is a lifelong ambition. It's something that they will follow through and hopefully go on to university, apprenticeship, degree apprenticeships. But we have to ensure that they get the grades that they would require in order to access those universities. Now, a 6B entry requirement does not suggest that that student will go on to Oxbridge, Imperial, LSE, Ivy League. Okay? What it does do, though, is it ensures some form of pathway onto some form of higher educational institute. So this isn't about us being elitist. It's not about us being highly selective. And actually, what I would say is we're not selective compared to a lot of schools. So up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that some schools will ask for 3 A's, 3 B's as a minimum requirement. Others, Harrow UK asked for 7 A-star grades for sixth form entry. And some colleges will just demand that they have an A or an A-star in the subject of their choice. Okay? So 6Bs we feel like is a good intermediary step to ensure that students feel motivated and have high self-esteem on entry to the sixth form.
So just to clarify,
yep.
Because it wasn't stated, you're saying that Harrow requires a minimum of 6 Bs in order to get to sixth form?
So I will explain what alternatives there are available for people who do not meet those entry requirements. But yes, we have a 6B entry requirement for sixth form. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Brown to explain what we do before we get to that sixth form transition point.
Good morning, everyone. So just to talk you through the journey that students in SR5 experience, I'll be focusing on year 10 and 11, so remove and fifth form. So the monitoring that takes place is very comprehensive, as I'm sure you can imagine. In the first instance, in the classroom, the monitoring of their class and homework, checking how they are coping with the level of work being set. We have regular assessments throughout the terms to make sure we are checking their understanding and seeing where there might be gaps in their learning and supporting students as and when needed. That builds up to the end of year examinations, which we have coming up this term, where students in year 10 are assessed for their overall understanding on the content that they have covered that year. I will talk in a moment about the support that we put in place as that continues across the academic year. But it's not just the academics that we're monitoring. As Mr. Johnson's touched upon, we are obviously very interested in making sure that student well-being is well cared for and that students are being looked after. We monitor that. There's various different platforms that we use to check how students are doing, but the pastoral care and the guidance and the support that we give alongside the academic support is crucial. In terms of you as parents, the reporting that we provide for you, we have the grade cards, we have the written reports. We obviously have our parent consultations as well. It's something that I ask absolutely one of the most important face-to-face interactions that we can have, and the attendance to those parent consultations, it's so crucial. And if you are able to be there, please do make sure you can be, because it's a great opportunity for you to talk to each of the teachers about how your son or daughter is progressing. The focus in those consultations is very much about how they are progressing towards the final grade. That's the key in year 10. We are absolutely looking at how we think they are progressing towards that final end of year 11 examination. We analyse the data all the way throughout the year, and this is where the support then really comes into play. We have 2 tutors in year 10, 2 tutors in year 11 for each of the form groups. The academic support that we have is very responsive to the individual needs. If there are particular subject areas of concern, we meet with the students, we talk about what might be going wrong, and we put in place support for them. That's alongside the pastoral support. We try to find out what it might be that is causing any problems with their progress, whether that's a language problem, whether it's something to do with just simply finding that subject difficult. We have other things in support in place for year 10 as well. We have the Sixth Form Study Buddy programme, which is a fantastic programme that Ms. Pohl has helped to put in place, where peer-to-peer support. And I have to say, I've seen some of this in action. I've visited the Rayleigh Learning Centre, and some of the best interactions I've seen where sixth formers are there working on these incredibly complex mathematical equations with year 10s and year 11s. It's fantastic to see, and it's something that our students in SR5 really benefit from. We're really clear on our target setting as well for students in remove and fifth form. Teachers give very detailed targets so they know exactly what they need to do to make the relevant progress, and that's something that we're very hot on. Assemblies are given as well, where we speak to students, particularly year groups, supporting them with that progress. Same as our Futures programme that runs in year 10 and 11, 1 hour a week. There's a carousel of different topics that are covered, and we absolutely have a focus on academics within that, as well as the pastoral support. And we use our morning registrations very effectively to make sure that students are getting academic support. Currently, every Wednesday morning, students in year 10 and in year 9 are being shared revision strategies, and they're being taught different ways of preparing for their end-of-year exams, so that we're giving them a wide range of advice to try to help prepare them as best as we can. We don't want them feeling that the end of final exams in Year 11 suddenly creep up and surprise them. We are preparing them really early on how to approach these exams so that they go into the final ones feeling happy, healthy, and as prepared as possible. It's a similar picture in Year 11 for our fifth formers. There's obviously some additional challenges that they face in Year 11, coursework particularly. We have a very good coursework program that is offered where the teachers work tirelessly to provide extra support for students completing coursework subjects. We monitor very closely to make sure that they are on track to meet the deadlines and produce work of the quality that we know they're capable of. We also have practice examinations. This academic year they were in January. Next academic year we're planning for them to be in December. And these are a really important practice experience for the students where they will have, the Year 11s will have the whole school to themselves. It will coincide with the expeditions for the rest of the school. And they will have a very authentic experience over the course of that week, sitting examinations, being supported during that process so that they get used to exam techniques, revision techniques, and they prepare effectively for them. Oh, sorry. Also, comprehensive support, as I've touched upon, in terms of their academic monitoring, assessments in class, homeworks. There are other possible routes that we can go down with Year 11 students as well in terms of subject level. In some cases, it may be that a student considers dropping one of their IGCSEs. If that student is finding a particular subject too difficult, if it's clear based on the data that they are unlikely to pass that, so a C grade or above, in very few cases we may consider supporting that student by dropping one of their subjects. If that is the case, and in the few occasions where that happens, that student will be given a timetabled space in the upper school library where they can get access, where possible, to academic support or work independently on their other subjects. We also have cases where students might choose to switch to a core or foundation in a particular subject. I think of maths and the sciences in particular. That's often a very good move for that student. It may mean that that student's grade is capped. The highest they might be able to get is a C. So if that student wished, let's use, I don't know, physics as an example. If they wanted to do A-level physics, switching to core wouldn't be an option for them because they would need to get a B or above to access that as an A-level. But if they're not looking to do those subjects at A-level, they just want to have the best chance of passing that, then a switch to a core might be a good option for them. These are looked at on an individual, case-by-case, and we will meet with the student, meet with the parents, and discuss that. In terms of the pastoral support, it continues all the way through, as you can imagine. Our heads of house and tutors do an incredible job of making sure that students are feeling supported and understand that there are people there for them that they can speak to. We have counsellors in school as well if exam pressure gets too much and students need to speak to somebody. The check-ins are very regular, and we use very responsive data to make sure that the students are absolutely comprehensively supported. Reporting is very much the same as the Year 10s, the grade cards, the written reports, the parent consultations that we offer, and again, attendance to those is very important, especially Year 11, to get that advice and guidance from the subject-specific teachers about how your son or daughter is progressing. The support then for Year 11s, we have a couple of additional pathways that students can go down in terms of their academic support. That includes lunchtime and after-school academic support sessions, subject-specific. I use the data and analyse it carefully to make sure that students are guided towards particular academic support sessions. But that covers the whole range. That's for students maybe in danger of not passing the subject, all the way to stretching our most able to get the A converted to an A star. We make sure that there is academic support in place for all ability levels. We have the Songkran holiday program as well, which is something that is very effective, that students respond very well to. But importantly, for me, I think with the Year 11s, it's about encouraging them to take ownership of their independent study as well. What we do during the Futures in Year 11, Futures lessons become very much academic focused from term 2B onwards. We give them opportunities to have lectures in this space here. We had a number of lectures, subject-specific, where students came and they took part in these big workshops We give them an opportunity to form study groups with their peers, and they support each other and take ownership of their own learning, which I think is very important to prepare them for the challenges of sixth form. We also have a comprehensive options program, because whilst they are very busy doing their best to get the best grades they can in Year 11 for their GCSEs, they also have to make their choices about A-levels. And that's a huge part of the Year 11 experience. So we make sure that students have every piece of information that they possibly need provided for them. And I'll touch upon that now as well. So some of the things that we offer for our Year 11s, we have a sixth form peer fair that takes place. This is always very important, where students in the sixth form are able to share their experiences of how the A-levels are going for them. And our Year 11s gain a lot from those conversations about what the subject's really like when you're in that subject, the kind of expectation you can expect on the amount of homework down to what the lessons are like. We have teacher discussions, obviously, where teachers will speak in detail about their subjects. The A-level options fair, which takes place in beginning of November. A very important event for the students, particularly because there are new subjects that they can choose in the sixth form that they haven't been introduced to before, subjects like psychology, travel and tourism, and media studies. So a really important opportunity for them to learn about the options available to them. And we have an amazing careers team in Harrow Bangkok, and they provide an incredible level of support for our students in SR5, not just Year 11, but across the lower school, across the upper school, sorry. They do careers profiling. We use the platform Unifrog, and students are working with Unifrog during futures lessons to have a look at pathways. If they have that ambition to study engineering and Imperial, we then work backwards. What A-levels do you need? What GCSEs do you need? We make sure they understand beyond the classroom what skills and experiences are going to benefit them as well, and we support them in taking part in the wonderful range of opportunities that we have here, so that they are very competitive when they come to applying to university. I've touched upon the parent consultations. We make it very clear in our reporting and in our conversations with you what their targets are and what they need to do to try and achieve those targets. And again, as Mr. Johnson talked about, it's that communication that we think is key. If you have concerns, that communication to me, to heads of house, about questions you might have, meetings are held all the way through Year 10 and Year 11 about students and progress. It's about early intervention. I've met with parents recently who are in, their sons or daughters are in Year 9. I've had conversations with parents all throughout Year 10, this academic year, about concerns. Is it right that your son or daughter is ready to progress to Year 10 or to Year 11? If there are barriers to their learning, whether that's to do with their level of English language, whether there are different barriers that they face, we want to make sure that the students get the right pathway for them. In some cases, that might mean repeating an academic year so that they have more time to develop their English. It might be that we look at their GCSE profile and make a few changes. It might be that a Year 9 student is recommended a different subject at IGCSE compared to one that they've chosen because we think it might suit them better. We give that level of advice and support, but it's very much done in collaboration with you, the family, and us, the teachers that are trying to give them the best opportunities that we can. So that's a little summary of the journey that they go through in Year 10 and 11. I'm going to hand back to Mr. Johnson now. Thank you very much.
Crikey. I think it's important to note that we're probably talking about 10 or 15 students out of 140. So when we talk about alternative pathways and these types of conversations, we are talking about the small minority, which is where I think some of the concern within the parental body came from. For the vast majority of our students, you can see behind me, the normal pathway is an option that many of them will take. So most of our students will exceed a 6B minimum entry requirement. We have so many people receiving gold and silver scholarship status with discounts going into sixth form because they've received a huge number of A's and A stars at IGCSE level. So for those students who have received those grades, they're expected to take 3 to 4 A-level subjects. They would participate in the extended project qualification, so the EPQ, or the HRP. And then there's lots of enrichment. If you're a Harrow Bangkok student, you cannot just come and study your subjects. You must participate in the wider life of the school. Not only does it help with university application, but even if they never fill out a university application, it is about becoming a well-rounded individual on leaving our school. So what do those commitments look like? Well, to give you some idea, you have those 3 to 4 A levels. They will consume the majority of your time. But around that, you will have lots of different enrichment courses. If you're aiming for a university that might require an entry test and an interview, then there will be preparation courses. We support with SATs and IELTS, language proficiency courses. We have the HRP, the Harrow Research Prize, making sure that students are equipped to research in a field of their choice and specialise in an area that they're particularly interested in. Most of our students will want to take up student leadership positions. And when I say most, we get around 60 to 80 applications for leadership posts out of 140. That is over half of the student body wanting a position of responsibility. But with that comes a time commitment. We've obviously got university and support. We've got games, so all of our students continue with physical health for at least an hour a week. And for a small minority, some people may have the opportunity to resit their GCSEs early in November of Year 12 if they haven't quite got the grades that they will need for university progression. So you can see it's very busy. We all work and we probably have jobs whereby actually we focus on very few things. The students, however, have to focus on 3 or 4 different subjects plus all of those other commitments. It's an incredible undertaking, but one that hopefully will set them up as they go forward. Now, for those students who that might not be suitable for, we have an obligation as a school to put something in place. Okay? So what we will talk about is having a look at reduced subject pathways. So instead of doing 3 or 4 subjects, maybe we advocate for 2 or 3, providing more time for independent study or study support. Some students will be directed towards fixed subject choices, and Miss Paul will talk about the reasons why we pick certain subjects for certain children. I think you'll all imagine it. If you're getting an A star in maths, but actually language really isn't your thing, then we probably have no problem with you pursuing maths at A level. Would we advocate for you taking English literature? No, we certainly would not. It's about finding the best for that individual, but there are some blanket options for students that we really believe support students who struggle. We can also have an AS-only pathway, so actually students could leave us at the end of Year 12 and they would go on to university to study a foundation course. And by doing that, they have an additional year at university, but they are preparing in only that subject. Everything is geared towards preparation for undergraduate study. And then finally, there are some non-examined pathways. So some conversations for our students who struggle the most, and hopefully parents will have known this all the way through their school journey with us, maybe looking at alternative provision is something that we have to have a discussion about. It's never a nice discussion, but looking at alternative education systems that don't have terminal exams, if there's a specific need for that student, has to be considered. So in practice, what does this look like? Well, I have some case studies, and I'm going to read off the board, but let's take, for instance, Student 1. Student 1 has mainly B grades, but they've not quite met the 6B requirement. Okay? They've got 4 B grades and 3 C grades. They've passed their English and maths. For that student, we're probably going to advocate for 2 or 3 A levels, so 3 is no different to the normal pathway. We would still advocate that they take part in the Harrow Research Prize, and we would still advocate that they take opportunities through the enrichment curriculum to make sure that they become well-rounded and that their focus isn't just on those academic subjects. It might be that we look at the combination of those subjects, though. So, for instance, you can see up there, we might be advocating for subjects like travel and tourism, maybe business studies or media studies as well. And there are reasons behind that, but that's for that specific individual. Student 2 is a different profile again. Okay? They've mainly got C grades, they've not met the 6B entry requirement. For that student, because they've not passed English, we're probably going to have a look at 2 or 3 A levels tailored to that student, but they're going to have to resit their English IGCSE. they need that C grade for UK university entrance. They need to prove a certain level of proficiency, and therefore that's what we would advocate for. Yes?
Sorry, just need to clarify. So if they do not get a minimum of 6 Bs,
Yep.
will they be asked to leave and they can't continue?
No, so I think maybe it's the fact that we call it an entry requirement, which is misleading. The 6B requirement is for accessing the full suite of A-level options and free choice in the subjects that they take.
So they won't be asked.
They won't be asked to leave. In some cases, we might have a conversation as to whether we're the right setting, but that very, very rarely happens. Yeah. Okay. Student 3, again, a different profile, just to give you an example. We've got less than 6 passing C grades. Again, they've not passed maths, but they have passed English, and therefore they will be resitting maths. But again, we might have a look at an AS-only pathway for that child, given that the grades at IGCSE haven't been so strong. And then student 4, we'll share this presentation with you afterwards, but less than 6 passing grades, mostly a C's or below. We're probably going to have to look at either an AS-only pathway, or perhaps examinations aren't for that student, and we need to have a look at alternative pathways for that child. So you can see the 6B entry requirement is just to access this. Okay, it's to access a full Harrow-Bangkok educational profile. Actually, most of our students, I would say 80–90% of them, have this option. Okay, for the very small minority, there are so many different things that we try to do for our students. Now, what I would urge you to do before I pass over to Miss Paul is consistency is key. And school is not just about examinations. Okay? We recognise that all students will have different abilities, different interests, different passions, and that is perfectly fine. But if we're not open with the community about what could happen depending on those IGCSE grades, it can place you in quite a difficult position. So the emphasis and the amount of time Mr. Brown has spent on looking at every single individual from year 9 all the way through to year 11, and as he says, having conversations with students who are in year 9 in Shell, anticipating what could happen in 2 years' time, is our obligation as a school to be completely transparent with you and to be able to intervene earlier on in that child's education. But by no means are we turning students away if they don't meet that entry requirement. What we are asking is to be able to support your son or daughter in making sure that they go on a pathway they will feel successful in, fundamentally. Okay? Right, Miss Paul's going to talk to you about why we advocate for certain subjects.
Hello, everyone. I think just to follow on with what Mr. Johnson said, when we get to sixth form, our key motivating factor in working with these students is to make sure that they feel successful when they leave us and that they have choices, that they have control over options that they have of what they want to do next. The worst thing that we can do as a school is ever set a child up to fail. And that is why we look at the different subjects and whether a student is suitable to take that subject to A-level, because we have so much data that indicates who is going to be successful at that and who is not. And there are some subjects that require a B grade at IGCSE to take it at A-level. That is not us making that subject elitist and saying we only want the best students. It's because to be able to access the subject content, they have to have understood it to a certain level at IGCSE. And they will, if they haven't been able to do that, they will walk into a class and they will not understand so much, and the pace will be so quick. And the impact that can have on a student's self-esteem, and over a 2-year course where it gets increasingly more difficult, is really damaging. And it takes away choices that they have. And so there are some subjects, for example, travel and tourism, media studies, business studies. These are not easier subjects, but they do not have a GCSE requirement. The exam boards give, in their curriculums, in their syllabuses, they give indications of what previous knowledge the student needs to have to access that course. And these subjects Business Studies we do offer at IGCSE, but the course is written that it is suitable for students who haven't studied it before. So it means everybody is starting at the same place. Travel and Tourism and Media Studies have a 50% coursework component, and it includes group work. And so students with different attributes, they may not be so good at exams. They might find exams, the time pressure, working by themselves in that pressure of the exam really challenging. But actually they're very sociable, they collaborate well, they communicate well with their peers, and group work they are really well suited to. And with coursework, we can offer additional support through that. In the classroom, outside of the classroom, we can help them, we can break it up into steps. And so with those subjects, they go into those exams having 50% already secured. And that takes some of the pressure off. And in that way, those courses can be more accessible to some students than other courses. Business Studies, we advocate for students that do find exams more difficult, not because the subject is easier, but because of the longer term pathways. So if a student is going to be looking at a foundation route into university, a lot of the foundation courses have a strong business element, so it provides them with a stronger foundation to be successful at their next stage if that's what they choose to go into. It's also quite a broad A level, it's not quite as specialised, which then allows them to specialise when they move to university within business is a massive field, and it gives them a foundation in it, and then they can choose a course that suits their strengths. Different to economics, it doesn't require such a strong maths base, bringing up from IGCSE, again making it that little bit more accessible to some of our students. What we are also able to do, if we have students that need that extra bit of academic support taking similar subjects in these types of courses, we can make sure that they are in groups together. We can make sure that we have additional classroom support. We have within the structure of the sixth form curriculum, there's something called option E. We can add additional supported study in there. We can give them more access, and we can put so many more support structures in place to ensure that they are successful, and that is our end goal. In some of the other subjects, we say physics, chemistry, for example, English literature, that can be much harder to do. Okay? The other thing I want to touch on is just a heads up, is that the same thing will apply when we look at AS to A2. There is a question of progression at that point for exactly the same reasons. We need students to move into A2 knowing that they will be successful. And the A-level course is a 2-year course, but 50% of it is completed during the AS. And so the marks that they achieve in AS are carried through and count for 50% of the A2. And so we ask students to have a minimum of a D grade to continue with a subject into A2. If they are achieving an E or a U where they have failed that subject, it means they're carrying forward that 50%. So no matter how well they do at A2, it's too much of a hurdle to lift that. They are setting themselves up for failure. And so that's why we do look carefully at their AS grades before they move into year 13. And for this, we're talking about maybe 3 students a year. Like, it's teeny, teeny, tiny. But for those students, we look at very close, again, it's no surprises, the conversations are happening beforehand, but we look at the reasons why. Sometimes it's down to poor subject choice, it just hasn't worked for that student. Sometimes there might be other reasons for the underachievement. And those students will be offered the opportunity to resit, to repeat year 12, maybe on different subjects if that has been the reason, or we work with them to find an alternative pathway, but that rarely happens. And those that repeat year 12, they have the option of then exiting at the end of their repeated year and graduating at that point. And we help them on foundation courses or other different university choices, or they can continue into year 13. And I think just anecdotally, students, we have, there are 2 students currently in year 12 who repeated the year. We changed their subjects. They are like different children in terms of how they carry themselves in the sixth form, in terms of their own confidence and how they feel about themselves. Going into the exams now, they are different children to what they were last year. At the beginning of the year, where they chose to repeat the year, they had decided to leave at the end of year 12. They have both since decided to stay to finish year 13 because the experience is so different. So these aren't light decisions that we make. It is about making sure that every student is successful when they move up through the school and then when they leave school. So the AS route that we've talked, Ms. Johnson mentioned, I just mentioned it again in a little bit more detail. Those students that really very much found their IGCSE examinations too challenging, we know that accessing the A-levels, the full A2 course, is going to indeed be very, very challenging for them. A2 is substantially more difficult than AS. And so for those students, we might offer an AS-only route. So they will move into sixth form with their cohort. They will have a modified curriculum. If they need a resit in maths or English, they have that. And they will do either 1, 2, or 3 subjects, normally within the 3 subjects where we can offer the most academic support. Although that will depend on their IGCSEs. If they have one A or B in a subject and really want to take that one, of course, we will support that. That's where they have shown success. And we will then support them through year 12 with the additional university guidance support to find a pathway that will allow them to thrive. For some students, this might be a foundation route in Australia or in the UK or a community college in the US. For some students, this might be Thai University, where we will talk them through and support them, also looking at different qualifications they can get alongside the AS year. For example, the GED, which they can get outside of school alongside their AS, which gives them a different entry route into Thai University courses, and making sure that they are choosing university courses that do play to their strengths and where they can be successful. For all of these students that require that additional support, that haven't met those 6 Bs, we have, as I say, additional academic support, but they will also have supported study support. There will be times on their timetable where instead of having independent study, they will be working with a staff member who will help them map out their weekly goals. You know, what do I need to do this week? What have I found challenging? What conversations do I need to have? In addition to all the support that is here, and EAL support, SEN support, and everything that they need to allow them to progress. Okay.
Now's a good time to open the floor to any questions that you might have. If they're general and people would benefit from them, please ask now. If you want to talk to myself, Mr. Brown, Miss Paul, afterwards about your specific child and what their journey looks like, then please do. So yes, any questions? Yes?
Sorry, just for the A-levels,
Yep.
you mentioned that there's a certain proportion of children that do sit in. Okay, so just wondering, like, do they do, like, the first year, let's say they know that the student is doing quite well, will they let them do the A-level within a year?
As in an accelerated, they do the full thing in 1 year?
Yeah.
No.
So that they can get the best grades at the end of the second year.
That's no.
can't. It's a 2-year course. There's so much
There's other system colleges in England, and they do that. That's what I'm just wondering.
When you look at what their day looks like, they will have so many more hours of curriculum in the school day. Those students wouldn't be doing anything else at all, and they kind of hotbox them a little bit. So it's very, very intensive. We don't offer that type of curriculum. It does not develop the individual as a whole. It becomes much too narrow. It's not something that we believe in.
I think it,
Sixth Form Crown or something.
yeah, it would go against everything we're trying to achieve in terms of making sure that.
In those circumstances, for those children who need it, then they could switch their A-level choices. For example, if they...
We don't have our lessons, our curriculum does not allow us
to support
to
that.
do that.
Unless, obviously, when they have to switch their options, let's say when they're in year 13.
No, if they switch choices, that would be if they're repeating year 12. So we would essentially start again.
Oh, so they have to repeat 2 years.
Yes.
Plus the additional year that they had done.
So their sixth form journey would be 3 years.
or they choose to repeat AS year and then enter onto a foundation course or Thai University at the end of AS. And then it's 2 years, but they are leaving with AS levels, not A2 levels, but of a higher grade.
Either going to foundation in another place or just repeating a Harrow.
Yes.
One.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
Slide on the remove.
Pardon?
The slide on the remove.
Yeah. On.
When these decisions that you made on the core course, the core IGCSE,
So-
that happened.
Some of those conversations are happening now. We have end-of-year tests, which happen on the 27th of May for year 10. So we will have a lot of information when they do their end-of-year exams on May 27th. After that, we'll be in touch with any parents we feel that those students should move on to a different pathway for year 11.
Thank you. And for the next slide,
That one?
yeah, what is the reduction of IG courses?
Yeah, so all our students take English language, English literature and maths, unless they're on an English second language pathway, and then they choose 6 option blocks. Now for some students it might be they only take 5 options, and then in the 6th option block they have some form of study support to be able to complete additional work in an area that they struggle with. Yeah. Okay. Any others?
Can you provide me the timeline? Because currently the year 11 is taking the IGCSE, and when will the result come out, and if the students need like consultation or counseling, what would they happen? Because they only choose the year level on this year, right? But the result of the exam is surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. Every year there can be surprises with outcomes. On the results day, there's the whole careers team, myself, the Sixth Form team, and we meet with individuals. If it is that they haven't then met the grades that they need to progress, we will meet with that individual, invite parents in, and maybe look at changing their pathway if it has to be done. But it will be on the results day.
That would be like in August.
Mid-August, so just before the students come back. Is it the 16th? 15th? 15th of August we will have the results.
I will the result like show to the students.
Yes, we will, as a parent, you will receive information from the exam centre with exactly how to access all the results. If it's CIE results, your child will have a login and they can access them at home. And then we will be in school, they will know how to contact us, you will know how to contact us if there are any questions on results day. I think it's worth noting though that for a student where you're talking about them having to alternate pathway and really not being able to access the full 6 form curriculum, there are rarely huge surprises about that. So a lot of those conversations with parents have already been happening. We will not wait till results day. If we think that if there is a chance that that could happen, or we think it's likely, those conversations have already been had with parents. Mr. Brown, what is more likely on results day where there are surprises is not the whole suite of looking at accessing 6Bs, but whether there's one subject that they have chosen, if they've chosen history and surprisingly they've got a C or a D at IGCSE, so it would be a change. In that case, we're looking at changing one subject choice. And the year 12s, when they do start school, we have a comprehensive 6th form induction program over the first few days, so they don't go straight into lessons. So there is lots of time for us to discuss with those students, actually what do you want your subjects to look like, your grades are slightly different than what you had anticipated, is this the right selection, let's look at what we can do. So time is built in to make sure those decisions are not rushed and they are carefully thought about, and we'll have parents need to join those conversations.
Any others? Okay. Well, we will be around. Please help yourself to tea, coffee and something to eat, and thank you very much for attending.